G'day there. Welcome to the closing bell on the 10th of May for me around midday. And today I'm going to focus in on, rare earths. I'm going to have a look at that a bit later. I think it's starting to look a bit interesting, I think. There's an interesting dynamic with China being accused by Iluka of pretty much bullying the market down and making things uneconomic at the moment, pretty much for everyone in that space. And, I've always, I've been saying for a while that I think China really is deliberately um, crashing a lot of these markets to scare off competition in the West. And the way I see it, they can't keep it down forever. I think it's setting up an interesting dynamic if the pricing in rare earths is heading down into the cost curve. It's only a matter of time until things really supply starts dropping off, and really if demand picks up enough anyway, and if it's a false economy with that pricing because it's really been forced down, it should correct itself. I think it gives me more confidence that rare earths are going to kick higher before long. So I wanted to show you that, but give you a sense with other things that I've picked in the past of how I go about it to help people, go from an idea like that about a market and what the uh, may be going on in the fundamental side and the technical side and how they marry up. And then when a sector gives me a signal to get long, and then I'm zeroing in on particular stocks in the sector, looking for the technical and fundamental setup in those, and then, going after the whole sector, either with like an ETF, for example, just going after the whole sector or individual stocks within it. So that's really how I go about it often, not all the time, but if I do see a particular commodity looking really interesting, I will go after it in that way. And uranium was one I did last year. And if you've been watching these recently, I was saying that gold looked like it was about to blast off. I did the same thing with my guys in Retirement Trader, showing them, a few months ago, look, I think it's going to break out. And I gave three at the time. We were already in one of them with a half position. But I'll show you that. I'll just show you even the charts of the trades I went into, just to give you a sense of how I go about it from the top down all the way into picking a stock. And I'm actually putting together a video for you, which will go into much more detail. If you find this interesting, please check it out. I'll send them out next week. It's like a little free series for you of videos showing you how I did this in uranium and gold last year, and set up the trades for people and how they panned out and what the logic was in how we took profits, that sort of thing. So it's a real nuts and bolts of how I actually go about it in my trading services. So please, if you're interested in that, check it out. Above you now, you should have something popping up to click on, and just click on that and sign up, and you'll get those videos next week heading your way. And they're just short little videos, maybe 5-10 minutes, those first three, and then a fourth one giving you sort of really a peek about what I think that is the next commodity to take off. So it's not the rare earth one. I'll be showing you rare earths today, but there's another one that I think is actually closer to taking off. So it'll really be the third commodity that I've gone after in this last year. So I want to tell you about that next week. So just kicking off, this is uranium going over the last few decades. And, hopefully, again, you've been watching this for a while, seeing the way that I look at these major waves, and often markets will have, massive retracements of those waves, everyone getting shaken out of positions. And, I look at that 75 to 87% retracement of that wave. That's just when I'm getting interested, waiting to see whether the market can turn around from that area. And as you can see, it can take a long time. When a market's been hammered, it really can take a while for it to turn around. This was uranium, so there's Fukushima, and then it was all over for uranium from there. No investment, mines getting mothballed, the price going down into the cost curve, no interest, oversupplied, all over Red Rover. But all of a sudden, things change, don't they? And what I want you to notice when you're looking at this is, I'm looking at it from many angles. I'm looking at it from that wave and the retracement, but I'm also looking at how those down waves are forming. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying, well, what's the most recent high of that? That's sort of around there. So that's an interesting point to keep an eye on as things develop out of that zone. And I'm also watching as it rallies, that it starts to make an uptrend, a very slow uptrend, which took a few years to take shape, but it's an uptrend nonetheless. Higher highs, higher lows. So once it's starting to do that out of that major zone, it breaks out above that key area saying, well, this could be the beginning of a new uptrend now. And we had all the news coming out at the time. That's when I'm looking at this sector and I'm saying, I think uranium is ready to turn around. That we're seeing a rounding bottom. We're seeing the beginning of an uptrend. We're seeing key levels getting breached. So I'm getting pretty interested by this stage. So that if I'm following that along, I was waiting for signs of turning up, back up after about a year of selling off last year. And once it did turn up, that's when I sent out a whole bunch of trades in the uranium space, both an ETF and a individual stock position that was in Retirement Trader. Bought another one in another service, which is up, bought at $1.70. It's trading $4.60 today. So that was all based on this overall structure, looking at the sector itself, the uranium price, understanding the fundamentals, seeing the signs of things turning around and the beginning of an uptrend taking shape, all sort of combining with the fundamentals to say when it was time to attack that sector. And so from making that decision, then zeroing in on, an ETF or a stock and having a crack at it. And in this particular instance, we jumped on an ETF at about $6. And you can see not a bad run from there in less than a year. That's a monthly chart up to a recent price of 10.45, up about 73%. And, not out of the money for very long before it took off, took part profit along the way. So, within 2 months, had sold a third, and from that point forward was going to make money or break even. And away it went. So that's sort of an idea of how I go about it. And I'll definitely go into more detail in these instructional videos you'll get next week. And just to make the point, I think everyone's skeptical, in this space. It's very hard to get across to people how you go about things and what your long-term sort of results are. So, if that's on your mind, I just want to point out pretty much every trade I've done in the last year is in the money, apart from one trade we sold at 5% loss. And I was actually risking 4% on that trade at the time. Sorry, 40%. So we lost 12% of what people were willing to risk on the trade. And that's one trade out of 9. All the others, there was two others sold at break even, and all the others are in the money. So that's what my last year has been, not over trading, just plugging away, trying to be very disciplined. I want to, just super quickly show you what I mean across the board. So this was another uranium stock that we bought and grabbed this one at 78 cents. And again, if you've been watching these videos, I wonder if you're starting to see these waves that I talk about, the retracements of the waves. the false breaks of key levels, the buy pivots, and the mean reversion, and looking for, these structures to carry on to the upside. And that's really what I'm looking at over and over again with these things, picking up these opportunities. So this one bought 78 cents. That one's up at $1.66 at the moment. Not bad, I would say. Then we have my next trade. Just to show you everything, I like to be nice and open so you know exactly what's going on. There's no BS. Again, can you see the structure of the rallies, big waves, corrections, looking at the corrections and waiting for false breaks of major levels, waiting for buy pivots, and then looking for a resumption of the uptrend. So on that front, I sent out a signal to buy 93 cents. We got a half position, bought another half position at $1 as gold was breaking out. So this one being a gold stock. And, another 3 months later, it's up at $1.44 and breaking out to the upside. So yeah, again, another really good win, all happening very quickly. And this is just to give you that full, reporting of what I'm up to. This is another one, multi-billion-dollar company, this one. Can you see the buy pivots coming in? Those green diamonds. We bought it $25. 1, 2, 3, 4 months, 4, 5 months later, it's up at $33. And we've already taken part profit along the way, creating the free call option, and now letting this one run. And it's about to turn into a long-term uptrend. And you can see the powerful growth of that one over the past 10 years. So a good one to jump onto. Next trade, and these ones were gold. Again, can you notice big, strong uptrend? I like to join the uptrend after a correction and when I've got signs that things are turning back up from major support. You see the 20-month moving average, the Bollinger Bands there below. I'm looking at that 1 to 2 standard deviation below on those Bollinger Bands, waiting for signs of things turning up. And we grabbed this one at $1.92, just as gold was breaking out. That is now up at $2.30 within a couple of months and testing the all-time high there. So looking fabulous. And then we got another one, and we've only just gone into this one, a couple of months ago. We bought it at $2.03. It's up at $2.13. You guys should know this. I actually gave it to you a few weeks ago for free. That is Regis, and just waiting for this one to break out above 250. And I think it'll take off. And then we've just gone into a new one, which I won't show you the chart because you might guess what it is. But we bought this one 3 days ago at $10.05 or below. And it's up at $10.25 and looking pretty good within 3 days. So that's it. That's been my whole year. So if you do want to learn how I went about it, getting that uranium stocks, getting those gold stocks, all of the analysis behind it, give you a bit of a sense of how I go from the sectoral view down into individual stocks, please sign up for these free videos I'm sending out next week. And I hope you really enjoy them. Hopefully it's popping up on the screen for you again so you can check it out. All right, well, let's have a look at rare earths. Now, this is the rare earth ETF. I sort of use it as a bit of a proxy on the industry, large companies in that sector. And you can see the torrid time it's had over the past year or two. And the sense I'm getting and why I'm sort of interested in this space, rare earths, we know in the next decade or two, even without electric vehicle use going through the roof, which it still will eventually, there are a lot of other uses in that rare earth, heavy rare earth, especially space, NdPr. It's a very strategic area. China has a stranglehold on it. We know the West is trying to get rid of their grip over the sector. It's used in defense, it's used in renewables, in wind farms, etc., etc. So we know demand is going higher, and yet the price has collapsed, and the price really heading down into the cost curve for many companies. Aluka coming out and saying that China is deliberately doing it, and I believe they are right. So you've got to be thinking about this from the point of view of here's something that the market was clamoring for just a few years ago that is now on its knees. And if it is on its knees because China is playing silly buggers, trying to scare off Western competition and close down the companies, uh, I think that makes me confident that it will bounce back and that they will be pushing it down like a beach ball into the water. Push it down long enough, you can't hold it down forever. And when you let it go, it's going to fly higher. So that's how I view rare earths. I think it's an interesting setup, but it's not quite there yet. This is not the third commodity that I think is ready to go after uranium and gold. This is just giving you an example. But look at this long term, from 2011, the crash, this was due to, the big rally due to the lack of exports from China, I think, to Japan, was it back then? Again, it was China playing around with the market, causing a massive spike and then crash. And, looking at this as a big rounding bottom ultimately. And again, I was showing you those downtrends in the uranium sector. This is where I'm sort of looking at something like this. And, that was a major high back in sort of the mid teens and 2017, 2018. And, I'm sort of watching that level going, well, if it does get above there, that's a good hint that the trend may be changing, going from down to up. But these trends never moving in a straight line. You have these big waves that shake people out. And I'm just looking at this saying, well, if this is the beginning of a decade-long shift in the fortunes of the rare earth space, then we could be looking at this wave here and the correction down into this buy zone as, one hell of an opportunity, ultimately, especially if this is a bit of a false market. This is China trying to scare off the West, and maybe the West will, realize they're playing games and will double down, backing the, things like Lynas, MP, Mountain Pass in the US, really trying to make sure they survive and giving them, like Arafura getting money from the federal government, 533 million US, a deal to help them get set up. You've got to say it's looking interesting down the track, I think. And this is the first time after it's collapsed. You can see it's in long-term downtrend. Look, there's a chance this month we do get a monthly buy pivot out of this buy zone area from this major wave. So look, it's early days and there could be more stuffing around to come. There's no doubt about that. Maybe we're 6 months early, maybe we're, whatever. Like in the past, look, it got hammered. It ended up taking a while before it turned around. The long-term trend shifted. The monthly buy pivot came in there. Then the long-term trend shift, and then off it went to the races. So, it's still trending down. It's still early days. This is why I'm saying it's not my choice for the third sector I want to attack, but it is a sector that I think you've got to have in your thoughts as things develop. It's the first signs of life here from this sort of major area where I think it could ultimately turn up from. However, that turning up looks. It can take a while, but it's definitely in that zone, and especially if China is pushing things down, I think ultimately that will fail as demand really picks up. So it's certainly an interesting thing to look at. Let's have a look at Lynas quickly. But Lynas has performed pretty well considering, and there is noise that what if they take over Mountain Pass? Their sort of market cap similar to where they're at. That would double them up and give them a bit of strength. Who knows whether something like that will come to pass? I'm not sure they need to do it, but just looking at the structure of their rally, you can see again that long-term trends and the corrections that you see there. The midpoint of that correction is where I'm interested, and we actually bought this around $2, $2.15, and rode this higher in my service retirement trader, and then I've actually gotten out of it, and I'm considering whether to head back in, because it's just starting to make signs that it might be getting ready to turn back up. You can see here, there's that major wave to the upside. I'm just looking at this midpoint here. Is that going to be the point where it turns up from? Also, I sort of look at these buy pivots that happened in the past. Like I'm sort of looking at them and imagining what can happen after they occur. So, it's always tricky. I don't just buy on the buy pivots. I'm sort of analyzing how prices can evolve after there's a first sign that it might be turning up, and things can get shaken out, right? They can turn down to that 25%, 618 below, shake everyone out, and then turn up. And it's often higher probability once something like that happens. But there is signs of life for them at the moment, with a buy pivot confirmed just last month. So it's another one, a little false break there, and try and turn back up. So of course, if the long-term trend shifts up, that's going to be another good sign. So interesting on that rare earth space. I think there is some signs of life coming into that sector. All right, well, hopefully you've learned a bit today, got a sense of, looking at these sectors, looking for the buy signals, zeroing in on the companies that matter, and looking at their fundamentals and their technicals. And it just really increases your odds of success. And yes, sign up for those free videos outlining that concept for you next week. And I hope you enjoy them. All right, cheers. I'll come back with more next week.